shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadioShow. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers, it's time to go for a ride, as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Said the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for tuning in to us at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast to you live on this Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we do this thing 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. We are your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, conspiratorial, ufological, interdimensional, and so much more. Spaced Out Radio's theme music is provided to us by guitar god Bumblefoot. Yes, Ron Thal. You can find his new album, Little Brother is Watching, by going to our website, spacedoutradio.com. If you're a social media junkie like I am, you can follow us on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. We live tweet this show. Thank you, Kathy Fisher. You can also give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where we hide our archives at Spaced Out Radio Show. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we love to send a shout-out to our fans taking part in Paranormal Forum, Paranormal Into the Night, Spaced Out Radio's chat room, as well as SHR Media, our first syndicated network. If you're a fan of SOR, coming soon is our Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month, you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews, have a special section, monthly newsletters, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a heck of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings. They provide healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com. Help heal your body, mind, and soul. The official newspaper of Spaced Out Radio is the new Agora newspaper, and the official ghost hunting app is the Spirit Story Box. It's only available on the iPhone. Tonight we bring back a familiar voice and someone new. It's a double interview wrapped into one. Bob Mitchell was with us about a month and a half ago talking everything ET that is happening here in Canada. The stories were amazing because I really like Bob as a guest, and he's going to be with us this month, next month, and in June again because of a UFO conference he's going to be holding in Brantford, Ontario in June. And one of the things I like about Bob is his story reflects mine. He's not only a well-respected journalist in Toronto, spending 40 years plus at the Toronto Star, he is someone who has been able to convert his experience as a writer into a legit profession of writing books on the UFO and the odd, the arcane, and to what some people would even call the obtuse. Myself, I don't have that much experience in journalism, but my 10 years in radio, combined with my experiences, helped us create Spaced Out Radio. We all have to be able to find a conduit to find the answers. And that's where I really enjoyed having that camaraderie with Bob. So he's back on the show tonight, and he's going to be talking about his new book, Forbidden Knowledge, with Jason Quitt. They co-authored the book. Now, Forbidden Knowledge is about time travel. It's about interdimensional and multidimensional travel that Jason has experienced himself. We're lucky to have Jason on because in some sort of way, there's not a lot of people in this world right now like Jason who are coming out saying this is true. He's been grilled. He's been called every adjective under the word with people trying to dismiss his claims. But if we don't open up to these claims, how do we know it even exists? That's the story tonight. You can go to Amazon to find Forbidden Knowledge. It is a great-looking book with a fantastic cover. We're going to start and finish tonight with Jason and Bob. We're going to go 2 hours, and then if they decide they want to stick around and go the third, if they're not too tired or we've covered everything, then we'll open up the phone lines in hour number 3. Once again, if you have any questions in Spaced Out Radio's chat room, Paranormal Into the Night, or Paranormal Forum, I will be monitoring. Please take the time to put your questions in capital letters. And I do want to say this before we continue. I know the minute we mention time travel, everybody jumps on the John Teeter bandwagon. This isn't about John Teeter. John Teeter never really went public. Jason Quitt and his stories tonight is about his time travel experiences. We're talking to the real thing right now, not just a bunch of notes that are sitting on a computer. On that note, we are going to bring in Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. Bob, how are you doing?
Great, Dave. I'm delighted to be back again so soon, and I'm really delighted to introduce all your listeners to Jason Quitt because, in my opinion, he is a superstar. I mean, not only is he a superstar in the world of crystals and healing, but he's going to become a household name if he's not already a household name among the well, I mean, it's not just a story about UFOs and aliens. It's a story about our history, the history that mainstream scientists don't want us to know, mainstream archaeologists refuse to admit, and what we are as a human being and what really is going on in this world, because he's lived it in many past lives, and right now he's living this current life as Jason Quitt, but he's had many experiences, and the one thing I want to make sure right up front for the listeners is Jason is not a physical time traveler. He's an astral time traveler, and there's a big difference. I'm sure a lot of people who are just just talk about time travel, and they think of H.G. Wells' story where he goes into a time machine and back he goes, or the DeLorean one for the television and the movies. But Jason has a completely different story, and it's an entertaining one and an enthralling one, and in some ways a very disturbing and scary one. But we're ready for any questions that anybody has, and I'm just delighted to be able to introduce you to him.
Well, thank you. And Jason, I want to introduce you to the Spaced Out Radio fans listening in the Spaced Out Radio chat room, Paranormal Into the Night, Paranormal Forum, and on SHR Media Network. We are spreading the word of Spaced Out Radio, and I'm excited to get you on as well. You've been kind of doing a little bit of a whirlwind tour with this new book, Forbidden Knowledge. Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, and I'm happy to be here, and that's quite an intro, so thank you to both of you.
Yeah, and remember, Jason didn't want to write this book. He had no intention of writing this until something happened to him, and we'll get into that later on in the show. But now that he has, it's been a tremendous success so far, where we continue to be #1 on Amazon's UFO Kindle site, and hopefully we'll continue after this show.
Awesome. Bob, I want to start out with you here for a moment, because as I said in my introduction, you are a person who plied his trade, his career into the field of journalism. You took that job very seriously, as I think any journalist should. You made the transition very successfully from journalist to well-respected writer. How did you find that transition for yourself? Because I've talked to other people about this, and I've also read the story of LA Times editor Philip Kraft, who had a very, very rough transition from being a respected person and member of the media over to UFO experiencer. How come it's been so easy for you?
I'm not sure why, because I really have not had any negative comments directed towards me. Maybe people are saying things behind their back, even laughing. But I got to know quite a lot of people in the business over, wasn't quite 40 years, but it was 35 years at the Toronto Star and a couple years before that at the Toronto Sun, and made a lot of friends both in the news angle and the sport genre. And I just always got along with people, so I never rubbed very few people the wrong way. And I'm sure everybody out there knows that I've gone this route now, but again, nobody, as I think I mentioned on a previous show, the only negative comment I ever got was when somebody asked me about Donald Trump, and I just made a comical remark about it, and then the next day I got a lot of emails saying, typical UFO guy doesn't believe in Trump, and I didn't know what they were talking about really, because I was just making a funny remark, but the transition from daily reporter to book writer, I had 4 crime books before I got into this strange field, and I got to tell you, people have just come up to me, and the stories are just writing themselves. All my stories are about experiences. None of them are about seeing lights in the sky. These are all about people who have had experiences that they can't explain, and they just feel they have to get it off their chest. And Jason found me, and I found him, and it was synchronicity, and there's a whole story behind that too. And we wrote the book in about really 2 to 3 months, if that. It might have been even less than that. So it just flowed very easily for me.
You know what? The one thing I know is we're all Canadian here, and most of our listeners are in the United States. But the one thing I can say about Canada, at least on the West Coast, I'm not sure if it's the same in Ontario where you are, but it seems like everybody kind of in Canada on the west side here is always like, I don't believe in that crap. Do you seriously believe in UFOs and ETs and time travel? But there was this one time a few years ago when I just can't explain it. Is it the same way in Ontario as well, Bob?
I think it is, but the one thing I'm noticing since I've been hanging around Jason at shows and stuff is that everybody that comes up to us are believers, and they believe in something that's not just in this third dimension physical world. And even when I do my quarterly meetings with MUFON in Brantford, we have 30 people coming out all the time. We are preaching to the choir, but I just find more and more people are, I guess, coming out of the closet, I like to say, but that they're now believing that the world isn't what we think it is. And that's really the whole basis of all my books.
Jason, what attracted you to finally decide that it was time to come out and tell your story?
Well, actually, I've been kind of in the background for about 10 years. And I've shared some of my experiences with friends or very small groups of healing classes. And my background is as a energy healer and working with different shamanic modalities. So I would, hint at many things and tell many stories about my own personal journey, which is all about healing. But it was only recently that it was last summer that my friend Joanne Eady said, Jason, we have to have you at the UFO or the Alien Cosmic Expo. And I said, sure, I think my story will fit. And I was actually very worried to go at the UFO community because I'm always speaking to healers, and they already speak my language. So I thought the transition from the healing community to the UFO community might be a big shock. But I was so surprised that I had a lot of interest coming to see me and wanting to hear what I have to say. And that's actually where I met Bob Mitchell.
And it's kind of been a match made in heaven. I mean, you guys hit it off right off the bat. How comfortable was it for you, Jason, when you met Bob and he seemed genuinely interested in telling your story and genuinely interested in finding out and basically saying, I believe you?
Well, oh, go ahead, Bob.
No. I didn't hear what Dave said because we lost connection there for a second.
Well, I could answer that.
Okay.
When I first walked into this Alien Cosmic Expo, right when you walk in, there was Bob Mitchell and Stanton Friedman sitting at a table selling their books. So I'm walking into the conference and I see these two guys there, and there's a big poster of Bob's book Intrusions. And on the cover of his book is a drawing of a mantis being or an insectoid alien type of figure. So I walk up to Bob's table, and I didn't even know who Bob was. I just saw his book, saw the cover, and I just kind of smiled and say, I know that guy on the cover of his book. And then I just kind of made my way through the building. So that was kind of like my introduction to Bob.
And you know what? When you hear Bob's background, it's something that to have him, because journalists, let's face it, we're fickle people. We're snide. We're a little bit crass. We don't believe everything that's been said to us. But when he comes up to you and says, I think your story needs to go into a book. I think your story, Jason, needs to be told, and I want to help you out with that. That had to give you some confidence as well.
It did, because he didn't even know my story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a little story behind that, too, because Joanne Edie, the organizer, she kept telling me I have to meet this fellow named Jason. But she didn't even tell me what he was going to be talking about. She just said he's going to be there and I have to meet him. And then after he came up and looked at my book, I went and saw his talk. And he opened up his talk by saying that he came into this world with pre-birth memories, and in fact, he chose his parents. And that's all I needed to hear, because as soon as he said that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's something I've never heard before. There's got to be a story there. And then he went on to talk about his past lives in ancient Egypt, and I thought, oh, this is going to be even better. So I went up to him and I said, just briefly introduced myself, and I said, I want to write a story about you, and let's get together. And of course, at the time, I thought his whole story just involved around reincarnation, and that had started to intrigue me because I was just finishing What If Close Encounters of the Unusual Kind that we talked about the last time I was on your show. And several of the experience in there connected reincarnation with aliens. So I was already on that path, and frankly, I was already thinking about what my next book was going to be, and I thought I might do a book just on the mantids, because people were telling me that nobody had ever written a book about mantids before, and I had 3 or 4 people tell me their stories about it. So that was where I was going. But when I saw Jason, just something clicked, and then when we did get together, I found out there was a lot more to this story, that he was an astral time traveler, and I didn't even know that at the time. I was just interested in the fact, the reincarnation link. So this became a real incredible journey for me too.
Jason, did it take some weight off your shoulders to finally be able to put this book together, Forbidden Knowledge, which can be found on Amazon right now? It is a bestseller. Did it really just kind of let you breathe and relax to finally let it all out? Because
I'm an experiencer my entire life, and I've gone through literally hundreds and hundreds of experiences of all different kinds, I started to forget so many things. And I was actually getting very worried that I won't be able to remember a lot of these things. And an event happened to me in May, just a month before the expo, that really changed everything for me. It really changed my mind because, honestly, I really didn't want to tell my story because it was just so personal to me, and it was so far out there that I didn't really know how it would be received. Even in the UFO community or the spiritual community, I didn't know how far I can push the envelope. So, I was doing a talk in, I think it was in London, Ontario, and I think I went over the line. And I say this because I got energetically attacked for speaking. And I became so ill that no doctor could figure out what was wrong with me. And I was literally laying in bed dying for a month, and I couldn't move. I lost my vision. It was almost like I was severely poisoned. And during this time, I thought, if I was going to die at this time in my life, who's going to know my story? How am I going to express what I know to the public? And it was a month later that I decided, I said, you know what, maybe I should just reveal it all, just tell my story the way it is, be completely honest and truthful. And right when I made that decision consciously, up walks a man called Bob Mitchell and says to me, I want to write a story about you. And I said to him, well, I got a story to tell you. So it was almost like perfect synchronicity. It was like seamless.
And he certainly did have a story to tell me. And I think your listeners are going to just be sitting on the edge of their seats when he tells you about this energetic, the only way I can describe it is a psychic or energetic hit put on him from the I guess the astral world. But there's a lot to get into before we get into that part. So we'll keep your listeners guessing.
Bob, we only have a couple minutes before we're going to go to our first break here on Spaced Out Radio. I do want to ask you, what made you so convinced that Jason's story is 100% real?
What made... Well, the fact that he didn't want to tell me all the stuff at first, and I had to really push him a bit to get him to tell me the real good stuff. And the more he told me the stories, the more I started to think that I was actually ready to accept this even before I had met him, because, as I said, with interviewing all these other experiencers, I had come to really believe that a lot of the abductions that were taking place were actually taking place in the astral world, not in the physical world. And the things that Jason were telling me actually validated that. And, he's got, his story expands everything, including the incredible, strange world of the healing power that crystals have. And I experienced something that I couldn't explain by my rational mind a couple of weeks ago, and we'll get into that about crystals, what the effect it had on me. But there was just something about Jason that seemed absolutely genuine. And he didn't hold back anything. And there really was no reason for him to come out and say the things he did, because, as he said, he wouldn't have been accepted. I mean, the stuff that he's going to talk about tonight, it's even far above alien abductions and alien interaction. It takes you in a whole different direction. And, it's just something that people more and more seem to accept, and our book is I think is a true testament to that, because so many people are getting what Jason is talking about and what I've tried to bring out of him in the book. It's just amazing to me, because I would never have thought it would have been the success that it has been so far. Jason always thought it was going to be, but it's just been an incredible ride so far.
We are talking with Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Their new book, Forbidden Knowledge, is a bestseller right now on Amazon. You can pick it up. We're going to hop out for our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to find out more about astral time travel. We're going to open this book up. Let's get a little forbidden with the knowledge on this. Notice that wordplay there? That was totally professional right there. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is Elizabeth Anglin, and on the last Monday of every month, I join Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's Cosmic Passport. We delve into everything from extraterrestrial contact to animal communication. It's a lot of fun, and every month it's something different and exciting. I would love it if you would join us. You can hear and learn from my experiences, and I'd like to know about yours as well. Cosmic Passport on spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for, so join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter, @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Welcome back to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love the chat that's going on, especially the word fickle in Paranormal Into the Night. It's just amazing how you guys picked up on the one word. Everybody's fickle now. Paranormal Forum, thank you so much for joining us, as well as everyone who is in the Spaced Out Radio chat room and listening in on SHR Media. We appreciate the support. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to have an interesting one. This is a call-in show. I want you guys to call in because a couple months ago we had a lady on named Sandy Mack who does past life healing regression. Well, she wants to take your calls. She wants to heal you on the air tomorrow night. I know there's a few people excited about her coming back on, so that's tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. You can also join us on Facebook. That's where our archives go. Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. And once again, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking about the book Forbidden Knowledge. It is right now a bestseller on Amazon.com if you want to find it out there. Our guests tonight are Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. Gentlemen, we bring you back on. I apologize, there was a little bit of an just like right there, and it's just I got two computers going on, Skype connection, and I live in the middle, so it does happen, and I apologize about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off a little bit of internet connection here as we go with that. Bob, I want to ask you, right point blank, how did Jason prove his experiences to you were real?
How did he prove? Well, I don't know if anybody can actually absolutely prove their experiences are real unless you've actually experienced some of the things he has. And since we've written this book, I have met people who have come up to us who say they've experienced the exact same thing that Jason has experienced, and even to the point where some of the things they wondered about, he's been able to explain and really change their lives. So it's not just him telling me the whole story. It's being validated by other people who are complete strangers coming up to him and I saying, thank you for finally somebody having the courage to put a book like this out. Even my other books, I mean, all these people have experiences that I've never experienced. So I can't, stand here and say 100% that I know their stories are absolutely true. But I can tell you, just like, I forget his name, but the psychiatrist that interviewed Betty and Barney Hill, he's even said when he had their stories, he couldn't absolutely say that they were true, but what he did say is that they absolutely believed that something happened to them. And that's the same way I approach it. Everybody that's been in all my books, I had this gut feeling that they absolutely believe it's happened to them. And one of the stories that Jason will tell you, it just shows you that this would not have happened to you or I, but it happened to Jason. And when he explains what happened to him, I think the listeners will really start thinking that perhaps there is something going on in this world that we really don't understand. And Jason does understand this because this isn't his first go around in this world. He's been a multi-dimensional time travel in this world, in other worlds, in other dimensions. And the strange thing is, he believes most of us have the capability of doing it and probably have. We just don't realize we have.
Jason, I want to bring you in here because it's going to sound like a funny question, and I do not mean it that way. I mean it with all my best Canadian honesty here, since we're all Canadian. Are you real? Are you human?
I am real. I am human. And that's a very strange question. Because Bob is calling me an alien since I met him.
Yeah. Well, there was another show that we were on, and somebody asked me, "Have I ever met an alien?" And I said, "Well, until 2 months ago, I would have said no." But after meeting Jason, I mean, he's an incarnated being, put it that way, and in that way, he is an alien. But we all really are aliens because none of us were, we're not native to this planet. We came from somewhere else. Our DNA absolutely proves that, and Jason will tell you where.
Well, also, okay, so Jason Quitt, Dave Scott, Bob Mitchell, we're all born in physical bodies, but physical bodies are just our Earth vehicles, they're our Earth suits. And our consciousness, or our multi-dimensional being that we are, inhabits many of these suits. But we are just not aware of it. So we come from many, many places, and we also live multiple existences and multiple lives throughout time, space, and dimension.
I believe in that because a couple of years ago, I actually had a dream, or about a year and a half ago, I actually had a dream where I met myself on another timeline, and my other self was absolutely pure evil. And I recall this, and honestly, it scared me. It absolutely scared me. That's just an example where I do believe in what you're saying, that we are on living multiple dimensions in multiple times as well. But Jason, when did you start to notice that you were different, that you had been an astral traveler your entire existence?
Well, my story actually starts pre-birth, because my first memories coming into this world was me getting to sit in some type of room. I got to look through a portal, and I got to view my parents. And I remember knowing that I was choosing these parents to come into this world through. And the next thing I know, I'm born. And when I first started to speak, I would tell my mother, aren't you happy that I chose you to be my parents? And they even remember this, and they still talk about how I used to tell them, aren't you happy that I chose you guys? So for some reason, that memory was so burnt into my consciousness as a child that it's still, to this day, it's crystal clear, that memory. And, I grew up very psychic. I saw things that shouldn't be there. Like, there was always weird things in my room at night, and sometimes I wouldn't go to sleep and dream, but I would leave my body or be taken out of my body, and I would experience, I would say, the spirit world, or astral travel, the astral realm. And I personally thought I was just dreaming. I personally thought that every person on the planet did what I did, and I was not special at all. And, if something bad happened in those journeys, I tell my parents, and they would just say, "Oh, Jason, that's a nightmare. Everything's okay. Everybody has nightmares." And I just thought that's what it was. That was a nightmare, and I had a nightmare. It wasn't until a little later, when I was about 11 years old, I was transferred to a new school, and I had to make all new friends. And there was one boy in particular that I became friends with. And very shortly, I started to remember a past life that me and this friend had. And it was a very emotional timeline for me. It was a very emotional past life. And I was just so happy to see this person again. I remember telling them, like, don't you remember who I am? Like, don't you remember we lived in a past life before? And don't you remember that I killed you in a past life? So you realize very early that the world didn't see the world that I saw. So I just kind of shut up about it and kept it in the back of my mind. But even till this day, I'm still friends with that person. And, I just spoke to them a couple of weeks ago on the phone, and he reminded me, he said, yeah, you were always crazy and different. You remember the time you told me that we had a past life together? So, but it wasn't until I would say my early 20s. That's when everything in my life turned upside down. And I started to have, I would say, extremely scary experiences start to happen to me. And I don't know if you're familiar or your viewers are familiar with sleep paralysis.
Yes.
Okay, so this experience started to happen to me in my early 20s, so around 21, 22. And I would go to sleep and I would be woken up consciously, but my body would be like in a coma. So I'd basically be yelling in my head to wake up or to move a finger or to, just to get out of this paralysis. And this would happen once a month. And eventually it was happening to me every single night. And as this was occurring, I started to feel presences in the room with me.
Having a little bit of feedback from one of the Skype lines there. Jason.
So, there you go. So, as I was in the sleep paralysis, I can actually start to feel things walking around my bedroom. And, I really didn't grow up with a religious or a spiritual background. I didn't really know what was happening to me. And I was quite afraid. So one night I was just so angry and I just wanted this to stop because it was really affecting my life at that time. And I was struggling. I was trying to shake myself up so violently and trying to wake myself up that I shook myself so hard that I popped myself out of my body. And I once again had an outer body experience. And what happened was I came up above the bed and I can actually see myself laying on the bed. And that was actually pretty freaky too, because I was straight as a board in bed and my eyes were wide open. So it was a really weird thing to see yourself laying in bed like that. And as I came up out of the bed, I saw there was a being standing at the foot of the bed. And the only way I could describe what this being looks like was a very tall, dark shadow, and it looked like it was wearing a cloak. The closest representation of what this being would look like would be your classic Grim Reaper type of being. And this shocked me so much because, one, I knew this wasn't a dream. This was like a whole other level of experience. And I wasn't expecting it to happen at all. So just the shock of everything that was occurring once I left my body, I think the trauma of that sucked me back into my body and I woke back up. But this is a very, very strange thing happened to me once this event happened. I was actually able to put myself into sleep paralysis. So after this experience, I never had anything put me into sleep paralysis ever again. So that whatever was causing that was gone. But it opened a door for me. And being the person that I am, I just had so many questions about what just happened because it was so far out that it's almost like you couldn't keep me away. Now that I've opened the door and I've experienced something outside of physical reality, I was like craving more, truthfully. So I would put myself into sleep paralysis and I would shake myself out of my body and pop myself out at night. And at first, you just kind of hover around and just stay in the bedroom type of thing just to get the feel of what it's like to be outside your body. And then eventually I would venture out like into the hallways or the house, or some nights I even tried to go outside my house. And this is when my life really changed, because I started to get visitations at night from different beings. And this is when I was introduced to this whole astral time travel thing.
I have a couple quick questions from our chat rooms, if you don't mind. They're both for Jason. Jason, Bruce in Paranormal Into the Night is asking, is it creepy to watch yourself sleeping? What was your first reaction when you saw that?
Well, what shocked me the most was the position I was in. It was almost like I was put on like a board. So I was straight as a board, my arms were to the side, and the freakiest thing about it was my eyes were wide opened. So, you know, I didn't look very nice when I saw myself. So it did really freak me out.
And Lisa in the Spaced Out Radio chat room is asking, what is your opinion, Jason, on the difference between a lucid dream and an out-of-body experience?
I would say a lucid dream is having a conscious dream, whereas an outer body experience is your mind remains conscious outside of your body. So it's almost like you're entering into another dimension, which is like your bedroom. So, for example, you know, a lucid dream, you're dreaming and then you can control the dream. Whereas astral travel, or what I'm experiencing, is I'm physically putting my body to sleep, but I'm keeping my mind completely awake. And once the body is asleep, then I could actually wiggle myself out and pop out of the body to enter this new dimension or this new space that I'm now in.
We are talking with Bob Mitchell and Jason Quitt tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Their latest book, Forbidden Knowledge, is a bestseller on Amazon right now. I highly suggest you go and pick it up. Bob, I want to bring you back in here for a moment.
I just wanted to interject something, if I could.
Sure.
Question. You remember earlier I said validation of things that are happening that Jason tells me, and then I find somebody with the exact same thing. When we wrote the chapter about him first meeting that dark being that looked like a Grim Reaper, you know, I had never experienced that. So again, it was one of these things that, you know, Jason is telling me, and he seems sincere, and it makes some sense that you might see something like this and you'd be very afraid because it's a dark being. Well, one of my nieces didn't even know I was writing a book about this, but she knew I was, you know, into aliens and all that. And while I was writing the book, she approached me, and she's 23 now, and she said to me that she asked me if I knew anything about sleep paralysis. And I said, well, a little bit. What's going on? And she said, well, I've been having them quite a bit lately. And she said the last time she had one, she could have sworn there was this black mass standing over her bed. And when she said that, it was a wow moment for me, because that's exactly what Jason told me. So, and they had never spoken. She had never read anything about this. And you know, so it was something that really struck home with me.
And I just want to jump in. The reason people really like these stories is because this is what I'm talking about is actually part of the human experience. So depending on what life we're in, we will experience something like this eventually.
Okay, so what was your question, Dave?
Well, you kind of answered it right there. So, moving on in regards to this, Bob, when you hear Jason's story about how he's going through this and how he's experiencing all this, have you had those experiences too, so you can kind of relate? Or is this something new where you're just kind of sitting back and putting a big smile on your face as all this plethora of information starts flowing through?
Well, you know, I have not experienced astral traveling, at least not that I know of. And I've had some lucid dreams, but certainly not as many as a lot of people have. So I had no ground, nothing to ground me and say, yeah, that's exactly. So I'm really, at the mercy of other people telling me that, hey, this has happened to me. What do you think? And the interesting thing is, people who now know I've written this book, people are coming up to me all the time and asking me questions, and I'm not an expert, but I'm actually know more now than I did about this fascinating subject. But something did happen to me with crystals when we get into that part of the show that I think the listeners will find fascinating.
Absolutely. Jason, there's another question from Eugene in Spaced Out Radio's chat room. How do you escape the paralysis during your exiting of the astral travel?
Oh, I escaped. At first I had to almost push myself out. So it was almost like you're physically muscling yourself out of your body. So it takes a lot of effort. So at first I was trying to roll myself out of my body, and it's almost like you're separating yourself. Eventually it got a lot easier, and sometimes I wouldn't even have to struggle out of the body. Sometimes I would feel a warm, tingling sensation in my stomach, and there would be a sound accompanied with it. And the sound would actually get higher and higher pitched, and I would just kind of tune into that sound. And once it got to a certain pitch, it just popped me out of my body. So I found that there was actually many, many ways for you to leave your body.
Bob, in your opinion, what is an astral time traveler?
An astral time traveler is somebody that goes into the fourth dimension, at least the fourth dimension, or even higher, but at least the fourth dimension, and their consciousness is going to the past, the future, and their physical body is still sleeping in bed. So it always happens during the sleep. I mean, Jason just can't be standing there and suddenly he's in another place. It has to be he has to be physically, not physically, but has to consciously be in the astral world. So unlike people who claim to be time travelers in the sense that H.G. Wells talked about time traveling, this is a completely different experience. And when he's in these places, he doesn't really have any control over where you go. In fact, he's actually directed to go somewhere, but he's observing from the astral world, and even though he's not physically there, he still experiences everything around him, from the smells, the sounds, the feelings, the tremors, whatever's happening, he's experiencing it as if he's physically there as part of the scene. So that's what I get as astral traveling, and I think Jason would probably agree to that.
Oh yeah, and there's many different experience levels to it. So one can be strictly an observer. So you're taken to a scene or an environment. It could be in the past or the future. And what would happen is you are just there to observe. So you cannot interact with the environment. And then there's the next level where you can actually be brought into a physical being. So if there's someone living in that timeline, I could actually go almost like a ghost into that being and experience what they're experiencing. And then the next level above that is your consciousness overtakes that physical being in that timeline, and you're now Jason in another body in another timeline. But that one is very rare, and when it does happen to me, I usually get yanked out pretty fast because I get too excited and I start running around talking to people.
And his presence in these timelines, it doesn't change the timeline like some physical time traveler people claim. It's almost like in some cases they're showing him a possible future, or they're also showing him a timeline that's existing at the same time as the timeline we're living in right now.
Right, and the thing that we don't understand about time is, from a third dimensional perspective, we experience time as linear as we're moving through it. But as you leave the third dimensional consciousness and you're entering into higher dimensions, which I would say like of the mind or the emotions, time, it's almost like you can travel through time just with a thought form. And so there's many timelines, and all time exists at the same time once you enter into these higher dimensions. So you can actually insert your consciousness in any place in time, because you're not bound by the time and space that we are in a physical dimension like we are here.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on here. We're going to hop out for a break here at the top of the hour. We are talking about the Amazon bestseller Forbidden Knowledge tonight. Astral time traveler Jason Quitt is with us, along with author and co-author of the book, Bob Mitchell. It's a full Canadian night here. We're doing this. They're in Ontario, I'm in British Columbia, and you, our listeners, are around the world. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantis, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners, for only $5 a month you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners, and the live listeners usually get something special and hang out in the chat room. And we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back for the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Absolute pleasure to have you on the SHR Media Network in Paranormal Forum, Paranormal Into the Night, and of course, the Spaced Out Radio chat room. Tomorrow night, it's open lines all night with guest Sandy Mack. If you have a plaguing injury that has been happening your entire life, this is the show to call. She does past life regression healing, and she's going to do it live tomorrow night with you, the audience, right here on Spaced Out Radio. It worked for me on my knees. That's all I'm going to say. It's time for you to call in tomorrow. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, we can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. All of our archives are put on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Once again, we bring in Forbidden Knowledge authors Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. It is an Amazon bestseller right now. It's on top of the list, easy to find. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us.
It's good to be here.
You're welcome. It's the first hour flew by.
Oh, absolutely. It just seems to always do that on this show. I know it really pisses off our listeners because they're like, what? An hour's already gone? That's why we had to expand it to 3 hours, because I got too many complaints that the show was over after 2.
Well, from the East Coast, it'll be 3 o'clock when it's over, so.
I want to... Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I was going to say, perfect time to get on George Norrie.
Well, we try not to push people over there. Let's just keep them here for right now. Hopefully, I will say this. Hopefully, one day we are the Canadian version of what George Norrie and Coast to Coast is. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
I do want to start off with a question for you guys. And this one's for Jason. This comes from Eugene in the Space Out Radio chat room. Jason, do you have any continuation of consciousness, and how does it account for memory losses during a lapse of consciousness, which always occurs with out-of-body experiences?
Oh, that was so frustrating. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Basically, you leave your body, and then you get, let's say, a portal opens up, and you're consciously move through that portal, and you feel like you're traveling millions and millions of miles away, and then suddenly your consciousness is back in your body with no memory of anything. So you're kind of really frustrated because you know you've just done something, and you know you've just gone somewhere and had an experience, but your physical consciousness has no memory of that occurring. And if you want, I could actually go into a whole story about that if you would want me to do that now.
Yeah, let's do it. We have time.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what would happen. So I started to leave my body like 30, 40 times a night that I was conscious of. And what would happen is I'd come out of the body, and it's almost like a portal will open somewhere in the room, and I will get pulled into it. And I didn't have any control over this. It was almost like I was just leaving and then getting pulled through these portals. And I would feel like I'm traveling very, very far, but almost immediately I'm back in my body, no experience, no memory, and then I leave again, and another portal somewhere else opens up, and I go through there. So this continued to happen for months, and it was just very frustrating because you know something's happening, but you have no recollection or memory. So one night I'm just, begging, like, come on, give me my memories back. Let me experience the whole journey. And one night I actually got my wish. And so I leave my body, I go through this portal, and I'm flying through this portal. It almost sounds like there's like wind or something in your ear, like you're traveling very fast. And then suddenly I come out of this portal and I'm deep in space. So I see the stars around me. And I feel that there's a being behind me. I can't see the being, but I can feel it touching my shoulder and guiding me through space. And I just asked the being, where are we going? And the being says, we're going to Pegasus, which I assume is the Pegasus constellation. And we start coming up to this planet, which looked like an ice planet. And it was just the equator that was green. So it was very much an ice planet. And they dropped me down and they actually put my consciousness in the consciousness of a small child. So I actually was conscious and I woke up in a little kid's body. And I was in a classroom in some type of school on another planet. And it was a human form. And I just couldn't believe that it was me, Jason, having an experience as this child, fully conscious, fully taken over this body. And I caused quite a scene there because I was so excited. I got up in the middle of the class and I started to ask people, like, tell me what my name is, where are we, what is this called? And everybody was just kind of shocked and looking at me. And then I said, oh, I got to find the library in this school. So I ran out of the classroom and I'm trying to run down these hallways trying to find some place with books. And I was just yanked out of the body and taken back. And the message that I got from this experience was we live multiple lives in multiple worlds, in multiple dimensions through time and space. And there is a separation that is put in place so we don't compromise our consciousness to allow other memories, other emotions, other experiences to bleed through in our timelines that we choose. And that made a whole lot of sense to me. But I was very fortunate to have that full experience of going from one body to the next. But it takes a lot of practice. So when you go out on astral journeys, most people will just remember the slightest little memories of what they've seen. And it just takes practice and doing it over and over again to try to retain as much memory as you can.
Corey from Spaced Out Radio's chat room is asking, what did the portal look like? She was taken out of the back of her head once and was flying backwards through a spinning bronzish tunnel. Was it the same thing like what you saw?
No, but I have been taken out you can get taken out pretty much in any part of the body in any direction. So sometimes you get pulled down, sometimes you get pulled out through the head or the feet, or a lot of times it's to the side. The bronze portal I've never seen. I've never gone through a bronze portal. It could just be the dimensional portal that you've came through. That's why you have a resonance with it. All the portals that I've gone through, they look like just black holes. So they're just black holes in space-time. That's the only way I could describe them.
Lynn in Paranormal Forum wants to know, have you ever seen divine beings and or God?
Okay. I have met beings claiming to be gods, and I've met beings that look like angels. But I just have to say that images are deceiving, and you really have to discern who this being is, because we all have to remember that we are all sovereign beings of consciousness, and we all come from the same source, and nobody is above anybody. So how I come in contact, I would say yes. But I would say each individual experiencer needs to discern for themselves what they believe is truth and not.
A follow-up question from Lynn. In all of your experiences wriggling through all these time zones and time travel and interdimensions, have you learned anything about what the alien agenda out of all this may be?
Intimately. That's a very long story. You want me to get into that?
This is all about you, my friend. Fire away.
Okay, so this may take some time. because it's not just one agenda, it's multiple agendas. And the more I know, the weirder it is. And, time travel is actually a big part of this. And people kind of cut the whole time travel thing out, because what people don't realize is that there are advanced species that could insert themselves through the timelines. So, for example, there could be species from the future that will say, we're going to try to come back to control the human population, and we're going to insert ourselves into our past as gods and try to control them and write new timelines and new history for us so we can control the human population. So there's also good, I would say, alien species that are almost at war with these beings, and they time travel as well and try to keep the timeline flowing in the proper order to stop these things from happening. But I have to say, it has happened in the past. Dave, there's like a huge history here that we have to kind of go through for this to make any sense.
If you want to tackle it, I got time. It's all up to you. I'll leave it up to you if you want to do that.
Okay. All right. So let's try to tackle the hardest question known to man on the radio. All right. So now I'll just start this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to tell the whole story about how this came to me and how I learned all of this, because it has to be told in this certain way. One night I was sleeping, and I hear a voice. It was just clear as day in my bedroom. It said, "Do you want to know your past lives?" And it just shocked me, because you're getting woken up in the middle of the night. And I immediately said, "No, get away," And then I calm myself down, and I open my eyes, and I see this being standing in my room, and it looked like a 4 or 5 foot tall being that was wearing a brown hooded robe. So I couldn't see the features, but it almost looked like a Jedi Master type of look. And basically, this being told me a story which I've never heard before, and it was a very strange story. And basically, he said, eons and eons ago, before time that we know it began, there was a race of beings that we would call the Builder race. And this Builder race created something called the Great Spider's Web. All right, so I'm just setting up this whole very ancient history here. So this race of beings who are now not here right now, they've all ascended, they're not even part of this timeline, but this spider's web that they've created is still here, and it's still in this universe. And what this spider web is an etheric web that connects all planets, all dimensions, and all universes together through a portal system. And there was a time in our history where beings would go to sleep at night in a physical form, they would leave their body, and instead of dreaming, they can choose where they would want to visit, what world they would want to go to, what beings they would want to connect with. And they use this portal system. Now, this being started to tell me that a very, very long time ago as well, another race of beings started to get very advanced, and they learned all about the spider's web, and they figured out a way to sever these connections between the worlds. And what they would do is they would sever the connection to many worlds, and they would actually take control of the worlds for themselves, because now they've cut them off from this great spider's web that connects everybody else. This being then went on to say that this race of beings is what we call the reptilians. And this race of reptilians is a warring race that has taken over many systems, and they kind of keep us in these worlds to control us. And they're saying that there are many children, there's many beings that will insert themselves into these worlds, and there's many of these worlds, and they will come here to try to reconnect these webs, these etheric webs, and teach the people how to free themselves from these worlds. So there's many multidimensional beings, like myself and others, who come here for the sole purpose of trying to reconnect these worlds to this spider's web of consciousness so that all beings could have freedom and leave and connect to all different civilizations through time and space. And I think this is a right that all sovereign beings have, and it's been taken away. So to get to the earlier question about, what is this alien agenda? The alien agenda is to keep us from knowing any of this information so that they can control our consciousness, our past and our future, and we become almost a food source for them. So in a physical sense, we live physical lives, but our emotions and our thought forms and our experiences, they actually create energy in other dimensions. And they use this energy for their own purposes. So it's almost like an energy farm. And that's what the real alien agenda, I believe, is. And through healing and through knowing yourself and knowing all this information, you can actually heal yourself, get your power back, and now you have this freedom to basically do what I do. And we all have that ability.
I agree with you. And a lot of people, I can see them right now face-palming themselves because they get freaked out by the whole alien agenda and the good versus bad, because especially down in the U.S., what I have noticed in doing this show, there are a lot of people out there who tend to believe the hype and the conviction that all extraterrestrials are bad. Is that the case from what you have seen in regards to your own personal travels?
No. In fact, I've seen way more good than bad. And I've actually had a whole shift of consciousness where I actually am seeing the really bad guys as our greatest teachers. Because the reason why we're kind of kept in these states, it's almost like a teaching. It's almost like you have to go through certain levels of experience. And I went through years of, I would say, battling these type of beings so I can actually free my own consciousness and take my power back from them. And it was not easy. It was years of suffering and hard work. But every being that came to me and attacked me became my greatest teacher, because if they didn't do that to me, I would not have learned how to defend myself in that situation. So it's almost like they're teaching you how to navigate these extra-dimensional worlds. And nobody can teach you that stuff. You have to experience it and figure it out for yourself. It's so weird and different that, I don't actually see them as being evil or dark anymore. I see them as an aspect of myself trying to teach me a new lesson.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bob, you had a question that just came to your mind.
Yeah, it actually doesn't have anything to do with what we've just been talking about, but a while back when he was answering a couple of questions of people that wanted to expand on the astral traveling experience, it just occurred to me that I never asked Jason this question before, and I think it needs to be answered. When everybody does astral traveling, and I've never done that, but when people are doing astral traveling, Are they being guided, every single one of them, by a being that's helping them do this, like you were, Jason? Or do some people just do it on their own without any help whatsoever?
I really do believe that each one of us has someone called a guide or a guardian, and it's almost for our protection, because there's a lot of stuff, and I can't stress this enough, there's a lot of stuff out there once you leave your body that does not like you, and they really want to be incarnated beings, and they will do anything to take a physical form. So this is where we get into the whole possession things. So there is an inherent danger to leaving your body, and that's why it's completely necessary for each person to have what we would call a guardian or a guide.
And in your when you first realized it was a black Grim Reaper type being, and for people who see this being, that doesn't mean that this is a bad guy. It's your own fear that is projecting on them, because we're all taught as a third dimensional being that evil comes in the color of black and dark and forbidding.
That's right.
So that while it's probably very difficult for somebody who experiences astral traveling for the first few times, and if they actually see a dark being, to not be afraid of that dark being, the best thing they can do is to not be afraid of it. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the biggest teaching that I think I had to learn, was that images can be deceiving, because let's call them beings with negative intentions. Beings with negative intentions could actually change their form. They could actually manipulate your mind. They can manipulate the environment you're in. So they can actually come to you as, let's say, a beautiful angel.
And you have an experience like that.
And I've experienced that too, where, I had to really discern if what they were telling me was true or not. And once you start to question, and once you start to realize that they're trying to manipulate you, it's almost like the disguise is gone and the ruse is up. So this is where this whole thing of discernment comes in. So part of the trials and tests that you have to go through in the extra dimensions is you have to learn how to just discern who is really talking to you, or who is really coming into contact with you. So I've seen beings that are just utterly like why are you wearing like a dark robe, like a Grim Reaper, but you're helping? And then you'll see something that's like an angel that's trying to implant thought forms that are going to kill you very quickly.
Tell them about the one that you had involving the angel being.
All right. I have to set this up with a story.
Sorry, I'm taking your job away, Dave, but it's a question that needs to be explained.
I'm just drinking my Tim Hortons apple juice right now, so I'm having fun here listening in. Go ahead.
All right. So I was told by a very good friend of mine, who's very psychic and a master in many energy modalities. He pulled me aside once and said, "Jason, what if I told you that the thoughts that you hear in your head and the visions that you see are not yours?" And I said, I don't understand. What are you talking about? My thoughts aren't mine. And he says, what if I told you that the things that pop up in your mind that keep you up at night, just the voice in your mind that just doesn't shut up, what if that's not you? And I said, okay. He goes, I want you to do this from now on. Whenever you hear a voice in your head, even if it's your own voice, or you have visions that keep you up at night, and I think everybody has trouble falling asleep when they're thinking too much. They can't shut their mind off. He said, I want you to treat it like a foreign intrusion. And I want you to say, "You are not my thought forms. I want you to leave now." And I did this. This was like my mantra for quite a while. So anytime a random thought popped in my head, I would immediately say, "You are not my thought form. Please leave now." And, something actually happened to me. So I kept doing this, and suddenly I felt something in my brain click. And it literally felt like something in my brain just flipped over. There was a physical sensation. And when that happened, it sounded like there was just air going through my ears. Like there was no thoughts, nothing going on between my head or between my ears. And one night I was sleeping and I was having a normal dream. And in the dream, I hear my own voice. So it's my own voice, and it says to me, "Jason, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have cancer and you only have 1 or 2 years left. I'm very sorry to tell you this." And I started to feel emotional. I started to get very sad and thinking, I'm going to miss my friends and my family and, this hard path I'm going to go down now that I'm dying. And then something dawned on me from what my friend said, that my thoughts are not my own. And at that moment, I popped out of my body and I looked beside me and I could see myself lying in bed, and there was a being laying on the bed next to me talking in the back of my head. And this made me so upset. Dave, I was so angry to witness this that I immediately grabbed this being by the arm. And I just screamed at it like, "Who are you? What are you doing here? What's your name?" And it just started to give me all this gibberish. And I don't know what came over me, but I said, "Are you a being of the light?" I don't know why I said this, and it's out of my character to say it, but that's what I said. And the being looked at me and said, "No, I am not." So I said, "Get out of here. You're no longer to influence me or connect to me ever again." There's two things that shocked me about this experience. One was the being looked like an angel. It was like glowing white light, and it had these sparks of white light all around it. It looked beautiful. So if someone were to encounter a being like this, they would probably drop to their knees and start praying to it. The second thing that's even more scary was this being implanting a thought form into my subconsciousness that would actually manifest cancer in my body, and I would be dead in 1 to 2 years. So right then I realized that our thought forms and these beings can implant thought forms, emotions, and actually manifest and manipulate through us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that really goes into detail of what is capable with these beings, and that's why we really have to get rid of this programming we have inside of us.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on. We are at our break time at the bottom of the hour. We are talking with Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. Together they have co-authored the latest, hottest book on Amazon right now. It's called Forbidden Knowledge. You can go get it right now. Just sign on to Amazon. Go pick it up. We're going to be right back with more of your questions, more of my questions, and I'm sure Bob's going to throw some in there too, because Jason is downright interesting. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings. No matter where you are, it's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I don't want to take a thing from you, I just want to feel like something real with you.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Sandy Mack will be back. We are doing past life regression healing. This is important. This is a call-in show. She wants to heal you. So if you've had something nagging your entire life, like Corey did with her epilepsy, time to call in tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio when we have Sandy Mack. If you're on social media as much as I am, and you're on Twitter, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR, for the live tweets at Instagram. I want to thank Kathy Hook Fisher for taking care of that. You do an incredible job, Kathy. Thank you. And all of our archives are put on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Once again, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we bring in Bob Mitchell and Jason Quitt. They are the co-authors of Forbidden Knowledge about astral time traveler Jason. Gentlemen, once again, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
I just want to say, I'm Matt, And I'm so happy that you have her on tomorrow because she's just an awesome person.
My booking coordinator, Corey, and I'll quickly tell this story, has suffered from epilepsy. And Sandy did a past life regression therapy on Corey, where she learned that Corey was actually stoned to death as a woman in Egypt. And in the regression, Corey pointed to her head. They actually pulled it out. And for 5 months, Corey did not have a single seizure.
Wow.
It's incredible. I didn't think it would work, but it does.
Oh, she's very talented.
Yeah, talented indeed. I want to get back to some questions here from our audience, if you don't mind. And Lynn in Paranormal Forum is asking, Jason, do you know the purpose of alien abductions? Because there is so much heated debate in regards to this. If the ETs are good, why are they taking us without consent? If the ETs are bad, why are they taking us?
Okay.
I have an answer to that too, but let Jason answer his version of it.
All right. It may not be the most popular answer you'll hear, but it's the answer that I'm familiar with. And there's many reasons for it. One is you can be karmically tied to these beings. And when I say karmically tied, it means they could be connected to your ancestry through different contracts. It could also mean that you actually lived as this being before, and you've incarnated as a human, and you're playing out a karma thing here. Another thing that I found incredibly fascinating that I've been told from the other side is that there are many species of aliens that are fascinated with the human being and the human being experience, and they will actually choose to incarnate here as human beings, and then their family will come and pick them up to study them or to take samples or even abduct them completely to seed other worlds.
Bob, your take on it?
It's very similar to Jason's take in that several of the people that I have interviewed in my other books who've had experiences of abduction, one of the strange things that some of them have told me is that during some of the abductions, and not right at the beginning, but even during some of the most horrific experience they've had, where there is some kind of a medical experiment undergoing, they are told telepathically that when they ask, why are you doing this to me, the answer almost always is because you've agreed to this and you're going on a new path. And the fact that they've agreed to this really confuses them totally, because who in their right mind would agree to be abducted by an alien? But when you put what Jason has said together with what they are getting from these aliens, it makes a whole lot of sense that the people that are getting abducted have some previous connection. It's almost like they've had this, when you go down there, we're going to bring you back at some point, and don't worry, we're not going to harm you, but it's just going to be some experiment to find out how you're doing. So I think there's really a lot to that. On the other hand, because the control that Jason talks about is so evident today with the military and shadow governments, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times they are putting out the story that aliens are bad because it's part of the control, that they don't want the human experience to know that the world is full of entities and that we have some history with them. They just don't want us to know that because they can control us better if we fear everything.
I just want to see if they want to come down and eat my wife's cooking, because I'm pretty sure that's why they're taking her. That's all I'm saying.
You remember you said you saw a gray in your window one time when you were doing a show.
I did.
So you might look at that as they were just looking on into the relative to see what you're doing.
You know what? That is true. We have a gentleman on here who is in touch with a cornucopia of UFOs and ETs. In fact, he's talked to over 30 different species. And what he says is, I asked him about that, Bob, about the extraterrestrial that night, like literally 2 hours after it had happened. I asked him, and I said, "What's going on here?" He goes, "Dave, you talk about aliens all the time. Do you think they're not going to come check you out and see why you're talking about them? Like, it just makes sense."
Yeah, they want to see, this is what happened to Dave. This is where he went.
And there's many different species of greys, and not all of them are what we would call bad. And even some of them have been around for a very long time, and they were sometimes called the Watchers because sometimes they peek in through the windows.
Exactly.
And they still do.
Yeah, they still do.
I've got so many questions here from our audience, and I've got stuff written down too. I'm going to get to...
And I was going to say, let's remember that most of the sightings, I would say most of the lights in the sky we're seeing are probably ours. It has, if an intelligent species can travel from other galaxies in a way that we have no comprehension how they're doing it, because remember, speed and time to us is what we think is from a third dimensional world. And we have no concept of what speed or what other beings are capable of. I don't think they'd be flying around our airspace just so people could take a look at them.
I agree.
Which is why you see a lot of spaceships on pictures that they're blurry, because they're actually going in and out of different time space. Mm-hmm. But the ones that are triangles, I'm pretty sure that they're ours because they look so much like some of the stuff that was used over in not the Cold War, but the Gulf Wars.
Lisa in the Space Out Radio chat room has a question. Jason, you've mentioned about the astral abductions, if we can call them, but have you physically been taken by extraterrestrials?
I have a memory. It's a very strange memory. And by the way, the answer is yes. I've been taken numerous times, but I have a memory as a child. It was a very strange memory where a UFO came to pick me up one night, and I was so happy for this UFO to be there, and it's like almost like I ran into it, and I don't remember seeing anything in there. I don't have any memories of that, but I remember going a couple houses down to a friend's house who was also my age and going out of the spaceship to get them as well. So I've had many, I would say I'd have many abduction memories from many different types of beings, and I've had contact with, I can't even put a number to the amount of beings that I've had contact with, because there's so much life out there, and we're not just talking about physical life, we're talking about dimensional beings, beings in other realities and other planets as well. And remember, we are those beings. We really are. We live lives as those beings. So sometimes we can reconnect with those families and friends from other places in time.
Bob, I have a question for you, and this comes from Joanna. Mm-hmm. Do you happen to know in all of your research why some people seem to get taken by extraterrestrials, yet others don't? Have you figured out how the ETs pick and choose who they're taking?
Well, I think we sort of answered that in the last question, that the ones that get taken have agreed to be taken, for the most part, because they are connected in some way to these other beings. That's not to say that I believe that to make it balanced, to make sure that the humanity doesn't catch on to what's going on, that some people are being actually taken by our own military or some faction of the military. Because, again, so many people who have abduction experiences will tell me that at some point they actually see what look like soldiers standing in these rooms or in these underground facilities. So either these soldiers are in cahoots with the aliens, or it's all part of a big fabricated lie to make you fear them and think that the aliens are bad. And of course that sets up another scenario down the road that perhaps a false flag alien invasion is coming at some point to even control us more. But I do believe most of the abductions are being done through some kind of connection. And I also believe that the vast majority of abductions are also taking place in the astral world, in the sense that it's your consciousness that is being taken out of your body, not your physical body, because spouses still see their husbands or their wives sleeping beside them, and they don't ever recognize or remember them leaving.
I have never woken up when Mrs. Spaced Out Radio has been taken. And I think
Right.
I think I can recall her saying that about 8-9 times over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so when it happens to her, it's her consciousness that's being taken, but it's really real to her, because it must be a complete shock to the system that when you're taken and beings are looking down on you and probing you and doing things. One of the ladies that I talked to, her name is Osi, that was in my book What If, and she's actually going to be speaking at the Alien Cosmic Expo in the summer in Brantford. She will tell you that she had some horrific experiences where she actually felt as if the hands of greys or other beings were actually reaching right through her stomach, and she could feel excruciating pain, but she was seeing it through her eyes. She doesn't remember her physical body being there. Mm-hmm. So the pain, our pain, is actually created in our minds anyways. Mm-hmm. So it's quite conceivable that she was experiencing pain in the consciousness, not in her physical form. And again, she has a young daughter, and the daughter's never seen her mother leave the room. And sometimes they sleep together.
And I just want to jump in because there is an example out there that is perfect, and it's actually from the movie The Matrix. And I don't know if you can recall the scene, but Neo wakes up and he's in the real world now, and he doesn't have hair, he has all these marks on his body, and then they re-plug him up to the Matrix, and he's in this virtual reality, and he's looking around, and he's like, he has his hair again, he doesn't have his scars, and he's saying, well, how is this possible? And they say, well, this is your almost like subconscious image of yourself, and you have it's almost like you have a physicality that your mind is building around your consciousness. And this is actually what happens when you leave your body. You enter into your astral state body. When I get pulled into different dimensions, I may not have a human physical body. I may actually change my physiology to match that dimensional realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, Osi told me that in one of her experiences, she found herself in what she thought was a one-person capsule flying through the galaxy towards another planet, and she did look down at her hands, and the hands looked like that of a gray. So in some ways, perhaps to get her where she had to be, she had to, assume that kind of a body. Perhaps her consciousness was put into a gray, similar to what Jason's consciousness was put into that little boy. But I know all the things we're talking about, and the listeners probably, some of them are sitting there and they're thinking, wow, this is the most incredible story going, and other listeners are thinking this is a pile of what. But I can tell you that neither I nor Jason are on ayahuasca or any other drug right there. This is just something that he knows to be true, and the more he talks about this, the more I'm convinced, and the more I think your readers will be convinced. And we've done almost 2 hours now, and we haven't even talked about any of his astral travel journeys or where he's been and what's happening and other stuff. So it's I guess we're going to hang around for another hour.
well, guys, I always like to cut in when I have something weird happen, and I got to tell you, I got a window right in front of me, and this moth just flew by, kind of startled me and caught my attention. And as I looked up to the moth that was trying to get in through the window, there was a human face in the reflection of the window right behind me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I am all goosebumpy right now. I love just saying when it happens, because when it does, it's kind of my job to report that. You know what that's like, Bob.
I know. You got to get
Exactly.
away from that window, because that window seems to be in a lot of your shows.
No, the alien was at a different window at my
Okay.
former house, so that's okay.
So it's following you.
I have a question from two questions from Roz in Paranormal Forum. He is of First Nations descent, so he's very spiritual along the lines of tradition. And he is asking you, Jason, what do you think about burning sage, cedar, or sweetgrass to try and keep the nefarious entities away and maybe keep the good ones around?
Oh, yeah. I love using that stuff because remember, space, it's almost like water. It holds memory. And the Earth grid, the magnetic field that we're in, records everything. So it's almost like everything that we do on this planet is being recorded in real time and then can be accessed back through the magnetic fields of the Earth. So, for example, if an event takes place in a space, let's say you're in a room and you have this terrible fight or some traumatic experience happens in that space, that energy, that memory, that whole video is replaying itself dimensionally through the Earth grid. So if someone walks into this space, they can actually pick up on that energy or emotion or memory, and they can start to be influenced by it. And, let's say someone has a real anger issue and has an outburst in a room, and then unknowingly people enter that room afterwards, and they start to get really worked up and angry. It's because the energy is already encoded in that space. So traditional medicines like the sages and the cedar woods, the sweetgrasses, all these sacred medicines, when you burn them or place them in the space, what you're doing is you're trying to cleanse that memory out of the space to have a healing effect. So basically what you're doing is you're healing the environment so that you can have a healing space to be in. So I think smudging is a very important thing that we should all know and do.
And the other question from Roz goes back to what we were talking earlier about the astral travel. Can you choose where you want to go?
Sometimes. But most of my journeys, I would say they're predetermined. So it's almost like I pop out or I'm taken out and suddenly I feel myself pulled into a certain direction. I feel like everything has been almost predetermined and watched over very carefully.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Eugene wants to know what blood type you are.
AB.
There's no RH in there anywhere? I'm not familiar with this whole blood type thing. I'm not up to date on it, so...
Well, I know RH, but this goes into another topic about blood and genetics. And one of the reasons we do choose to incarnate in certain physical forms or through certain family lines is because certain DNA or certain genetics and blood type give you access to different abilities or open up different portals to you so that you can experience certain things on your path.
Claudia in Paranormal Into the Night has a question. With our thoughts, do you believe, either of you, that we create holograms with our third eye to enter into or to experience other dimensions? And if so, is that why it's so vivid?
I'll just say absolutely. And I'll take it a step further, that our thought forms and emotions create realities in other worlds and dimensions. So when we see something, we can actually create it in the infinite consciousness, which is reality itself.
Excellent. Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on for our break at the top of the hour. as I got to go ghost hunting now. This thing, I'm jittery. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little jittery right now. So, although I love that feeling. We are talking with Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. We are talking Forbidden Knowledge, their novel, book, masterpiece of astral time travel and Jason's experiences. Forbidden Travel can be found on Amazon.com right now. I highly suggest during the break you go over there and pick it up for yourself. You're listening to Space Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be right back.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space. All you need at spacedoutradio.com. Third and final hour of Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the show, live, your phone calls for Sandy Mack, our guest. We're going to do live past life regression healing. So if you have something that's been nagging or bothering you for years, tomorrow night is the show to call in on. I want the phone lines jammed tomorrow night. Space Travelers, jam them up tomorrow night for Sandy Mack. Tonight, we are talking about Forbidden Knowledge. It's the newest book by Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. We're going to bring them on momentarily, but first I want to remind you that all of our archives are on YouTube. You go to our channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, click on that little subscribe button so I can make 1/4 of a penny. I'm going to get rich this way. I've got the plan. Anyways, you can listen to all our shows for free. On Twitter, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, we are Dave Scott SOR, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. We bring in Jason and Bob tonight. Once again, thank you, gentlemen. I know you're going to be staying this final hour, and I really appreciate you doing that by going overtime with us. Not the official overtime, listeners, because sometimes I'll yell overtime and we're actually going to go to a 4th hour, but that ain't happening tonight. So thank you for sticking around.
Thank you. There's no 4th hour.
Not tonight, at least. Jason, what happened to you last May?
Okay, so last May I got invited to a conference last minute, and at that time I was doing research on Nikola Tesla and the Pharaoh Akhenaten. And they asked me what I'd like to present at this conference, and I said, let's talk about Nikola Tesla and his connection to ancient Egypt. And I basically, the whole concept of this presentation was, what happens to you when you go against the paradigm, or you go against the powers that be? So, we have an example of Nikola Tesla, who basically had such amazing technology that he could have freed the world. He could have given free electricity, free medical devices, chemical-free agriculture, and the end to all wars. So this guy literally had the answers. And this was over 100 years ago. If we would have taken all of what Tesla gave us, our world would be completely different right now. And then I got into the ancient pharaoh Akhenaten. And Akhenaten, he was a renegade, and he changed from many gods to one god religion. And he went against the whole power structure of the priesthood and I would say the temples. And they took him out of the history books. So I started out this talk, and I started to show that, Akhenaten and his family were pictured very oddly in their depictions. And they always showed them with huge elongated skulls. And even all the children that Akhenaten had, the 6 daughters, they all had these very big elongated skulls. So I then went on to talk about these skulls and then say that, what if you were told that, or what if you've learned that Akhenaten and his family actually came from a time in prehistory, pre-Atlantis, where the gods ruled, and this is one of the offspring. So this being is not human. Basically what happened was, I started to let out a lot of information that hasn't really been out in public domain yet. And I learned very quickly that you can be the second person to say something, but if it's very difficult and you put yourself in quite a situation when you're the first person to come out with new information. And as I was giving this talk about Akhenaten, I started to get attacked energetically. And what started to happen was I started to get these hives on the left arm. And they were like hundreds of tiny little mosquito bites. And they just burned, and the pain was excruciating. This started to spread throughout my entire body over the span of a month. And every single day was worse than the day before. And I went to every doctor, I got every test done to me, and basically the doctor said that I was a medical anomaly. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. And it just sucked the life out of me. I was basically laying in bed for about a month. I didn't eat anything. I was just drinking liquids in excruciating pain. And it was almost like I was being eaten alive. It looked like I was just getting all these open sores on my body, and my skin was swelling up and falling off. And it was literally like I was poisoned. Like there was something really, really wrong with me. I lost about 70% of my vision. My eyes blew up. My whole face blew up. My ears were very much like cauliflower ears. It looks like I got beat up severely like a boxer. So everything was blown up. And I finally called the Algonquin shaman, whose name is Peter Bernard. And I asked him for help to see if he could help me. And he said that night he would do a healing on me. And the next day I woke up and it was the first day after a month that I actually felt better. So Peter called me up and he said, Jay, it's really a good thing that you called me when you did, because there was definitely a hit put on your life. There was so much sorcery and so much things done to you that it's amazing that you survived this long. And he went back and started to describe that this was connected to the life of Akhenaten. And I was going through what is called a reliving, where the death of Akhenaten in that life in Egypt was actually brought through the timelines and physically manifested in my physical body today as Jason. So what was done to him was he was poisoned, and so that poisoning came through to me, so I started to manifest what was happening to him. Then they took Akhenaten and they put him in a sarcophagus, and they filled it with scarab beetles to basically eat him alive. So that's not a very nice way to die. And when I looked in the mirror, that's exactly what I looked like. It literally looked like I was being eaten alive by invisible things. It was not a nice scene. But after I realized this, and after Peter did the healing on me, it was almost like my skin just blistered all up as one like scab, and it's almost like I peeled every piece of skin off my entire body, and I was a new person in 1 week. It was the weirdest, most painful suffering I've ever been through, which was like a month of hell. And during this time, I was really thinking that if I died, I really need to tell my story. And nobody's going to know about me, and no one's going to know what I have been through. And it was a month later that, I gave my talk at the Alien Cosmic Expo. And, synchronicity or the universe or fate, the famous Bob Mitchell just walks right up to me and says, Jason, I'd like to write your story. And I said, well, after my whole life of saying I'm never going to tell anybody, okay, Bob, I have a story to tell you. Let's write this book. And that's why the book came together so quickly. Like, we wrote this book in record speed. Like 2 months we wrote this book, because it's like once I made that decision to tell my story, every morning when I woke up, I knew exactly what had to be on that piece of paper, and sent it to Bob, and then Bob expanded it and wrote it in human language so that everybody could understand it. But, it was just one of those moments in your life that it just pushed me into telling my story, because I don't think if I didn't go through that, if I didn't almost die, I don't think I would have told this story.
I can see where that would be emotionally traumatic for you.
Oh, yes. And the the worst part about it was this happened in May, and I was actually getting married in August. And it was almost like my wife-to-be, she was so distraught, and she couldn't even look at me without crying, because it was just so traumatic for her to watch me go through this. And I really thought I'd have to cancel the wedding and cancel everything, because, you know, how could I even go out in public looking what I looked like? I really looked like I was a zombie. My skin was falling off. It was the worst time of my life.
And one thing I want to add to that is that at the Alien Cosmic Expo, after I had decided that I was going to write a book, I was informed that Jason nearly was murdered, basically, because of what he was telling people. And the thought crossed my mind was that, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But I didn't even know the whole story. I mean, I didn't know what it was that he was saying that would have got him killed. And but after I was told that, the strange thing happened was that when I got up to give my first talk of the day, and I actually opened the conference trying to be like the guy that got everybody excited about what was going to happen at the conference. Les Such, who was one of the organizers, thought I was standing on a certain side of him when I was actually on the other side, and he told me afterwards that he could have sworn that I was on the other side of him, and that there was something on the other side that looked like me. And that kind of freaked me out, because I didn't know what was going on. And then when I saw Jason give his speech, at the beginning of his speech, it was quite evident to me that something was bothering him from the left side of him. Like, it's almost like there was some invisible being there that was interrupting what he was saying. But halfway through his talk, it seemed to go away. And I just didn't understand this energy thing until he actually told me about it when we were writing the book.
And also, just to say that there's a lot of beings that just kind of mess with you. And when I went to give my talk, the first talk I gave at the Alien Cosmic Expo, there was a being standing to my left on stage with me, and obviously nobody can see this thing, or maybe somebody could, I never asked, but it was almost like they were yanking my arm and putting painful pressure on my neck and shoulders, and they were just trying to like throw me off my speech.
And that's exactly what it looked like to me, and I had no idea what was going on. It was almost like, you know, you see these people walking down the street and you're looking and they're talking to somebody that's not there. Jason wasn't talking to anybody, but he was actually looking every few seconds in that direction.
And I had to almost give my speech or give my talk, and as I'm giving my talk, I'm multitasking. So in my mind, I'm trying to like get this thing away from me, which I did. But it was just annoying, and it happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. I can see where that would be annoying in regards to a lot of aspects, because you're trying to concentrate on something and give a message out, but then all of a sudden you're pulled somewhere else, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
Weird. I'm glad I've never experienced that. Jason, in your time travels, where have you gone? Have you gone to the future? Have you gone to the past? Have you gone to Saturn or Mars?
Yeah. All. Okay, so let me back up for the listeners, because we have to kind of set the scene where, like, this is not something that I've ever asked for. You know, I never felt like I chose to do these things. So what happened was, remember at the beginning I was telling you how I just started to leave my body, and then certain beings would come to me and pull me out of my body at night?
Yes.
Okay, so the first experiences that I had were actually this time traveling experience. And what would happen is, in the middle of the night, I would be pulled out of my body by a being. And I can look at this being, but I couldn't actually see them. It was almost like they were invisible, and I can kind of see their outline, or it's just a shadow. And what they would do is they would take me in the astral form, or dimensionally, and they would shoot me up into outer space. And I can actually, see the planet getting smaller as I go higher into space. And then they would direct me to different points on the planet, and then they would shoot me back down to those points. When I would get to those locations, I would be in a different timeline, or a different time in the future or the past. So the first scene and the first ever time travel that I've ever gone on with these beings was they just dropped me off somewhere. It was definitely in the United States. I was never given any communication or telepathic message about what time period. And what they did was they just left me there. So I'm just left in a new timeline to observe an environment. And the environment that they showed me, or the environment I was dropped off in, was not a very nice scene. It was, it looked like there had been some type of mass destruction. The sky was very red. It almost looked like the sky was on fire, actually, and the earth was all scorched, and you can see the trees were reduced to just like black cinders. Then they took my consciousness and they brought me down. It brought me down into a bunker, and in this bunker there was a man in there, and he was definitely suffering. So whatever has happened on this planet in this timeline, this bunker did not help this person. So that was my first time travel experience with these beings. And the first experience was very strange for me because I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know I was taken into the future. I was just kind of shown these things, and I would just say they would be like prophetic visions. The next one was very traumatic for me. They took me out, and they took me again to the future, took me up into space, dropped me down on the planet, but this time they dropped me off in what I could only call a prison camp for children. And it was an open air facility where it was a big field that was surrounded by a cement wall with barbed wire. And there were hundreds of children there. They weren't wearing any uniforms. They were wearing normal everyday clothing. And there was a modern day tank in there, and I would say modern day soldiers in there. And what I witnessed was very horrific and very traumatizing to me. And when I came back from that journey, I was very sick. I almost had post-traumatic stress disorder. I was white as a ghost. I couldn't communicate verbally to people of what I experienced or went through. And I really didn't like these new abilities I had. In fact, I actually begged that these abilities be stopped or turned off. I did not want to go any further. I didn't want to go on any of these journeys anymore because they were actually quite horrific. The next one they took me to was, I would guess in the future as well, I was taken to what people would refer to as a FEMA camp. And I didn't know this was a FEMA camp. All I knew was it was a place that had hundreds and hundreds of white tents. There was bunk beds, and there was people in these tents, and it was guarded by soldiers. But what I found interesting about that experience is that I got a sense that the people that were in these camps they felt very, very lucky to be there. So whatever happened on the planet, or they were displaced, they were very happy to be alive and in these facilities. And there are many other experiences like that, but I don't want to get into the whole fear of the future type of thing, because I was always told on these journeys that these are the potential timelines that human beings are capable of. And it's not written in stone, and we choose the timelines we walk in through the choices we make now in the past. And that's when the being started to communicate with me, and all they wanted to communicate me about was about healing. All they wanted to do was try to teach me how to heal myself energetically, because they said if I healed energetically, I would change my own personal timelines. And if we all healed collectively, we can change all the timelines on this planet. So there is actually a positive message in all of this. And I believe that this type of time travel, this astral time travel to different timelines in the future, it's almost like a warning system. It's showing us potential futures that could come down the line. And then we come back into the present, change the way we see ourselves in the world, and that timeline gets erased.
When you are seeing the future,
yes,
are you looking at it on a conscious level, like you see cars on the ground, trees on the mountains, rivers flowing, or is this more of a conscious level where you're seeing the energy?
No, this is what it's like. It's literally like you're in your physical body. So you're being dropped off and you're in a physical body. You get to physically experience everything like you're there in person. But the thing is, to them, you're invisible. So I cannot interact with the environment or the people. I could just simply observe and take in the environment. But when I'm there, I literally feel like I'm Jason in a physical body standing in this environment.
Weird. But are you able, Jason, to see like who's going to win the hockey game, or what are the Blue Jays doing in the standings against my New York Yankees, or see who's president of the United States? Are you able to see that?
No. Like I said, these travels were completely controlled. So I know, and the strange thing is that I never actually had any questions or wants. Like I never said, "Please take me here." That thought never even came into my mind ever. I don't even buy lottery tickets or anything. Like for some reason, that stuff doesn't even enter my mind as something that I would do. But like I said, it's all, for me, it was almost like they had to show me certain things in a progression to snap me out of my physical Jason consciousness so I can be open to receive new information and to grow as a person. So this was like a very much a transformational journey for me. And each step was different, where I learned new things and I changed the way I see the world, and I also changed the way I see myself and the world I live in. So each thing was quite a learning experience.
We got about 30 seconds before we go to air. Bob, what do you think when you hear this story about being able to go into the future but nobody being able to see Jason?
Well, it makes sense to me if you're traveling in the astral travel, because you got to remember that the people in the future are living a future in their third dimensional world. It's like I've always thought, there's so much being talked about these days about the secret space program, and there's some really intelligent people that are saying it's real, and that there is things going on Mars and other these planets that we don't really know about. And because Jason says that time really isn't what we think it is, I wonder sometimes if we're not actually living in what is the past to the people in the future. But we don't know it because we've chosen to come back in this timeline. So to us, the secret space program is a secret space program because it's in the future to us, but to them it's the present. So I know it's hard to get your mind around that, but if it is true that we do choose where we come back in, and that time isn't what we really think it is in the third dimension, that it's completely everything all at once, that perhaps everything we're doing now to us might be the present, but it's really the past to somebody else.
That's weird to think, man, that we're actually in the past while other people are in their own present. That is very rich on the mind.
And I'll just say this right before the break. Let's just say I'm traveling into the future. They may see me, if they could see me, they may see me as a shadow person.
Shadow person?
Or just like a shadow, or some invisible form that they can't put their finger on.
Yeah, because that's what Jay saw when he was in his early astral traveling.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you that right after the break, and we have a couple questions as well from the Spaced Out Radio listeners. We are talking with Forbidden Knowledge authors Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell tonight. We have them for about another half an hour here on the mighty SOR. We're going to hop out for our final break of the night. When we come back, your questions, my questions. We'll see you right after that. You're listening to Space Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. Talk to you in 4 minutes.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
The last Monday of the month on Spaced Out Radio is a night of psychic vision, mediumship, UFO and ET contact, Bigfoot stories, animal communication, and so much more with me, Elizabeth Anglin. I'd love it if you would join host Dave Scott and I on the myriad of topics we delve into. Every month, we share new views that may help you understand your own experiences. So tune on in at spacedoutradio.com and stamp your cosmic passport.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Welcome back for the final half hour of Space Out Radio tonight. We've rounded third. We're headed for home here, as it's been a long one, late one, but it's a good one on the mighty SOR. Tomorrow night, our guest is Sandy Mack. We're going to do past life regression healing tomorrow night. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. If you have chronic pain, if you have a health problem, it may be linked to a previous life. Call in tomorrow night. Sandy will help you out. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also ask, or listen, or find out about our Instagram page if you're on there, Dave Scott, SOR. All of our archives are on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show. Give our page a subscription like there. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight, for the final time, I introduce Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell. They're co-authored a book called Forbidden Knowledge. It's a #1 seller on Amazon right now. You can go pick it up. I highly suggest you do. Gentlemen, thank you so much for staying late with us. Totally appreciate it.
Yeah, we're rounding third, and sports update, Chicago beat Toronto Blue Jays 10-1 tonight.
How do my Yankees do?
I don't know. Didn't look for that.
I know. You're a Toronto scribe. Of course not.
But the Raptors came back and won after I turned them off. But missed the whole fourth quarter. That was something, apparently.
Bob, I'm going to ask you a quick sports question. What is the attitude going to be like in Toronto if Edmonton gets the first overall pick in the NHL draft?
My goodness, people will be jumping out of the buildings, I think, for the Leaf Nation. But I think we might get Steven Stamkos, so that might... I think even if Edmonton gets the first pick, there'll be some kind of deal going, because I cannot... See, with Connor McDavid, they've got their whole... Like, how can they then invest in Matthews? Because Matthews wants to be the #1 center, and McDavid's always going to be the #1 center, so they don't need that player. So I can see them
trading
down for sure. So somehow I think Toronto will get #1 at some way. So
I'm going to say this right now: no matter what happens, the NHL rigs it. Toronto will get the first pick.
Yeah, well, we thought that was going to happen last year. But
no,
heaven forbid if Vancouver gets it, then we'll all be in shock.
Exactly. I'm pulling for it. We don't need another European. That's all I can say. Anyways, we're talking time travel, astral time travel with you gentlemen tonight. Jason, I have a question from Claudia for you in Paranormal Into the Night. Does your consciousness change in awareness, or do you feel like you are in a super consciousness state while you are somewhere else, like scanning digitally everything?
Yes, I have experienced that, and there's many levels to it. So, I've had experiences where you're almost in that super conscious level, where your consciousness is basically touching the ends of the universe, and you're almost part of everything at once, and it's a very hard experience to describe. But yeah, there's many levels of experience with consciousness.
When you go back in time, what does it look like for you?
Well, there's multiple points in time, and there's also, sometimes you go back in time and it looks like the future, because they had some technology back then too that we don't acknowledge. But for example, when I had a lot of past life experience in Egypt on this earth, so that when I would be taken back to Egypt, it's like I would be in temples that are very, they look very beautiful actually, and I'd be with people that were dressed like in the pictures. They were wearing the jewelry, they were wearing the headgear, they were wearing like those skirt type of things.
Bob, I'm going to get you to put your mic on mute for a second.
There you go. Are you
go
there?
ahead, Jay. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, I would like, for example, one night I'd be taken back to Egypt, and I'd be standing in a temple, and there'd be some pharaoh standing in front of me, dressed exactly from that timeline. And they would be standing and holding one of the postures that you see in the many statues from Egypt. And I would just kind of stand there and copy whatever they're doing. So I wouldn't get much communication. When I would go back to Egypt, I would actually get communication by a being named Thoth. And a lot of people know this figure. And he was almost like my guide. So when I would go back, I would be taken back with this person named Thoth, and they presented themselves to me, and it kind of looked like it was just a normal older man, an old man wearing a robe, and they would walk with me and talk with me as I'm going through the temples and the hallways and getting to experience that timeline.
Is it interesting to be able to go back and see the way it was? Because through history and through books and through hieroglyphics, we can only surmise. But when you've seen it with your own eyes on an astral travel, it really had to awaken you to the way history truly is, or was.
Yeah, and the strange thing about it was when you go on a lot of these journeys, it's almost like nothing surprises you. It's almost like a remembrance. It's like everything is actually very familiar to you, and nothing is really out of the ordinary. So it's almost like you're reclaiming memories that you used to remember. And this is what a lot of people will call past life as well. So when I would get a past life memory come back to me, it's literally like memories from that past life, like scenes and experiences that you've had in that life. Suddenly you have that memory of it that you can call on at any point, just like a memory in this life. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing when you go back to places like Egypt or Atlantis, or I would even say off planet to different worlds. You just have these memories. And that's the only way I could describe it, is you just remember you as this being on this planet having this experience. And you may not remember the entire life. You may just get glimpses of, oh yeah, I remember I did this, or I remember this happened. And a lot of these past life time travel experiences, a lot of them were at the moment of death. So it's almost like you're watching from a different perspective of you as a certain being passing in that life, and you're almost there to either relive it or to experience it again, or to support that being's consciousness to pass through the levels.
Roz in Paranormal Forum has a question for you. Jason, does your time travel affect who those in our... Pardon me, let me rephrase that. Does your time travel affect those in our timeline like the Mandela effect?
No. I think that because I'm an observer and not a physical participant, if I'm an observer, I'm not altering any of the timelines. But I kind of believe that if you're seeing, if you're actually observing certain events taking place, just the fact that you're observing it, I'm pretty sure we're changing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know the full answer to that.
You had mentioned right before the break that when you were in the future, if somebody were to see you, you would appear as a shadow person or as a shadow to them. Would you appear as pixelation or something blurry as well, much like a lot of people see Bigfoot?
I would think so, yes. Because that's how I experience the travelers that come to see me. So I would assume when I go over there, it's exactly the same thing.
Have you ever been seen, to your knowledge?
I actually get calls from a lot of people that I know that will tell me that I would come to get them in the middle of the night, or I would take them on a dream journey, or I would come to them in the astral state and do a healing on them. And to that I say that's entirely possible because I have memories of doing that, for a very, very long time. But a lot of it is not conscious. I don't remember a lot of these things. But when a person calls me and tells me that they've experienced me connecting with them in the astral state or the dream world, I just accept it. I just say, well, that's just a confirmation that something took place that night.
Question coming from the Spaced Out Radio chat room. What is your method, Jason, of memory recall in order to remember all the things that you do?
Getting angry and frustrated that I can't remember. I honestly, that's the answer, right? It happens so much that, you get little glimpses and you get frustrated because you can't recall all the different things. And I think it just takes a lot of practice and more of like a conscious effort of trying to hold on to those memories that when you wake up. But it is kind of like a dream. It's like you're there, everything's fully conscious, and then you wake back up in your physical body and those memories don't transfer. So you just have like slivers of information when, that feeling when you wake up and you're like, oh, I just had that dream. It was so amazing and now I can't remember it. It's kind of the similar thing to that. So it just takes persistence. For me, it was just persistence.
Where do you go from here in your own personal research?
I'm just doing what I've always done, which is I don't have any questions. I don't ask anything. And I just allow whatever experience to take place. And I'm just kind of learning as I go. So recently I've been having very strange experiences of being taken back to past lives as I'm dying. And it's very strange because it's almost like I could experience it as the person that's dying, but I could also experience it as myself. So it's almost like I'm in two places at once, and it's a very strange experience that I'm now working with, but I'm learning how to navigate it. It's almost like being two people at once. That's the only way I could describe it.
Bob, how open-minded did you have to be in order to accept all of this? Because for me, I believe Jason. I believe everything that he is saying. But if you're not in the know, it would have troubles for the layman to...
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, because you just went out there a little bit.
Okay.
I think you asked me how open-minded do I have to be? I think I have to be tremendously open-minded. And probably had I met Jason while I was still covering sports or crime, I wouldn't have been as receptive as I am now, because as I can't remember if Jason has said this tonight or not, but he thought the world was perfect before he started having these experiences. And while I didn't think the world was perfect, I certainly didn't think there was another dimension that we lived in, or there were multiple Bob Mitchells living multiple timelines, or even the power of crystals. And I know we don't have much time right now, but I'd like to just tell you a brief story that happened to both of us in two weeks ago.
That was actually my next question, Bob.
Okay. Well, we were at the Toronto Health Show, and Jason has a company called the Crystal Sun, and we were selling our book there, and that actually was our first public sale of the book. And Jason, like I said at the beginning, is a superstar, and he really is a superstar in the crystal world, because people come back every year just to see his crystals and the private collection that he puts on sale for people. And to me, I didn't get it. To me, the crystals were nice looking and nice decorations, but I didn't see what the attraction was. But one by one, people would come up to the booth, hold the crystals, put their arms out straight, and they closed their eyes, and they all looked like they were having this religious experience. Big smiles on their face. Every one of them was saying, "I can feel the energy circling around me." And we had one lady come and say that after using the crystals and Jason's Pyramid of Powers, she started hearing again in an ear that had been deaf most of her life. And so I'm watching all these people pick up these rocks, and I'm getting a little envious, because it looks like they're having such a great time holding these rocks and experiencing something that is completely foreign to me. So at some point, Jason gives me one of his meteorolite rocks, and I can put it in the palm of my hand and close it. So I held it in my left hand, arms outstretched, and Jason told me to breathe in through my left hand and breathe out through my right hand. And I did this several times, and nothing happened. And I said, I don't get it. I don't know what the attraction is. I don't feel anything different. I don't feel any tingling, nothing. But all these other people are holding this, and they're smiling and looking up, and they're just having this great experience. So about 2 hours later, I'm standing at the booth, and suddenly my left arm starts to hurt, and I mean, it was excruciating pain. And why it was hurting, I have no idea. I didn't lift anything heavier than my book, and I couldn't lift my arm above my hips, basically. And that was a Saturday night, and on the way home, I had to actually pick my left arm up with my right hand and put it on the steering wheel and use my right hand to do the turn signals. It was that painful. Went home, took a Tylenol 3 and hoped for the best, and the next morning I got up and it was even worse. Like literally, by the time I got to the show, I couldn't lift my left arm up even to hold the book to sign or autograph. And Jason explained to me that when you're undergoing an energy shift in your body, because we have both a physical body and an energetic body, that there's pain associated with a blockage. And when I held these crystals, it was this pain, and my rational mind couldn't figure out where this pain was coming to. And the only explanation I have is that I was undergoing an energetic shift of some kind. He told me it would go away in a couple of days, and sure enough, in a couple of days, I could lift my arm right above my shoulder as if nothing else had happened. But the pain was so excruciating, it was as if I had broken my shoulder, because I broke my right shoulder one time, and it was the exact same pain. So I'm living proof that something happened with those crystals.
I'd like to experience that. I really would.
You won't like the pain, that's for sure.
Well, the healing part, at least,
The healing part, yeah. It just went away. Like, it just, very strange.
It's almost like we have an energetic body that we've never used, and it's like a muscle we've never used. So when we start to activate it and we start to breathe energy through it, and that's what Bob was doing, he started to breathe energy through his energy system with the assistance of the crystal. Now, when he did that, he's opening up channels in his body that he's never really used before at that level. So it would definitely feel like a very, very strained muscle, because it's almost like a new sensation to the body. And it would feel very physical.
Mm-hmm. I am totally one for crystals, gems, things like that. The reason why is I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I always have sodalite around me. It just calms me down, it relaxes me, it helps maintain some sort of balance. So I am all for that kind of stuff. Totally.
Yeah, and you have to experience it to believe it, really.
Oh, true enough.
Yeah, because I experienced it, and now I believe it.
Joe has a question for you, Jason.
Sure.
He's in Paranormal Into the Night. What is your explanation for all the different experiences people are having with aliens? Some are physical and some are astral.
I would say a good 90% are non-physical contact, which would be in the astral, dimensionally, or telepathically. And telepathically could be with words or even visions, or even inserting themselves in your dreams. They can actually put themselves in your dreams. And this is the best way of contact, I believe. It's the easiest way of contact. And then there's that small percent, which is physical contact. And I would say a couple of those, a couple percent of that is done by, I would say, humans working with extraterrestrials. Was that the question? It's getting kind of late.
No, I think you answered it just fine. Thank you for slipping that one in. Do you ever fear for your safety? Bob, I asked you this the last time you were on the air because you're getting into some heavy ET UFO stuff. But Jason, do you fear for your safety in regards to what you've learned and what you've experienced?
Yes. I was in fear my whole life with all this stuff. But you get to a point where it kind of fades away, and like I've already been through hell and back many times. So for me, I'm just tired of it, and I think it needs to be said and talked about at the level that I'm talking about it. So I'm still here. I've almost died many times. I've been attacked many times, and that I really didn't want to come out really with this information. I really wanted to stay hidden as long as I could because I know how dangerous it is. But I think for some reason the universe just opened up and gave me the opportunity, and I'm taking it. So no more fear.
Do you worry about being a government guinea pig?
A government guinea pig? I think I'm too old for that. They want them as children. And the thing is that I would be absolutely useless to them because, like I say, nothing that I do is controlled. It has everything to do with the will of the beings that are showing me this.
Bob, do you concern yourself for Jason's safety?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he has told me that in past lives, when they've gotten to him, it's when he's been a lot younger. And so now he's past that point of no return, I think, and it doesn't really matter. For my own safety, I mean, I think I was probably in a lot more danger when I covered crime than I am now. Although I never even, there were only a few times when I, kept my eyes looking around the corner and wondering if, there was a bullet coming this way or that way. But for some reason, I feel, Jason and I have been connected somehow. When we first met at that alien conference, there was an instant connection. I never had any past life experience with Egypt, but my wife has always had a affinity to that. And when she met Jason, there was an instant connection there too. So I think even the people that have told me their experience stories, for some reason, they never told anybody in their life until they met me. So somehow I've come into people's lives at the right time, and I kind of didn't think anything about it at first, but now so many things seem to be falling in place that I think I was meant to write this book with Jason. And believe me, we got some other ones coming down the pipe.
And I just have to add that I was told specifically that there are thousands and thousands of people that have experiences just like me. And they probably, they don't talk about it, or they're ashamed of it, or they try to suppress it. But there are literally thousands of people out there that do what I do. Mm-hmm. So for me to come forward, it's almost like I'm allowing them to feel comfortable in their skin, and maybe they'll have the confidence to come forward and tell their story.
Gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much for bringing Forbidden Knowledge to Spaced Out Radio. Bob, we will talk to you on May 25th.
25th? Yeah, I guess it is. We're going to talk about Alien Cosmic Expo, I think.
Absolutely, and all the ET experiences going on. Jason, a pleasure to meet you, a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. I hope we cordially did justice to what you were trying to accomplish with advertisement and telling about your book tonight, Forbidden Knowledge, which can be found on Amazon. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Jason Quitt and Bob Mitchell on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Absolute pleasure to have both of those gentlemen on. Interesting story. Astral time travel. I'll be honest, I didn't even know about this until Bob brought it to my attention. I'm still new in this. I'm still learning the game. Everything is new. That's the exciting part of sitting on this side of the microphone. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, subscribe to it to listen to our archives, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We are rocking out to Bumblefoot. Little Brother is watching. You can find that on our website as well. Tomorrow night, Sandy Mack will join us. We're going to do live phone calls. I need your assistance here, people. You got to call in. Live phone calls tomorrow night to Sandy Mack. It is regressive healing. Tomorrow night, you're going to love it. We've had her on once. You loved her then. You'll love her this time when she's helping heal you. That's tomorrow night on the show. We will talk to you in exactly 22 hours from now. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow.